Good evening. I'm Brad Edwards.
And I'm Erica Sargent. She is only 7, but she told CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini just what it was like when police raided her home with guns drawn.
Yeah, this is the 4th case Dave has covered where families have been terrorized by a police mistake. Here's Dave.
What was the first thing you saw?
Guns.
Samari Boswell says her little brother TJ was turning 4 and having a birthday party the night they suddenly had guns pulled on them.
How were they holding them?
Like this.
The 7-year-old was playing Duck Duck Goose with her brother and cousins and anxiously awaiting a slice of this chocolate birthday cake when the party was busted up by a team of Chicago police officers raiding their home.
Were you scared that night?
Yes.
With her mother, Stephanie, by her side, the 2nd grader recalls the way police talked to everyone.
They were saying F words and stuff. It was horrible.
Horrible and unnecessary because they say the person they had a warrant for, suspected of possessing the drug ecstasy, hadn't lived in the building for 5 years.
Were they all pointing guns?
Oh.
The CBS 2 investigators found this security camera on a building next door and tracked down footage of the raid showing unmarked police cars pulling into the alley at 77th and Paulina around 7 p.m. on a Sunday. Then, one by one, on a cold Chicago February night, you can see a total of 17 officers head to the family's home, one carrying a battering ram, another with a sledgehammer, while others had their guns drawn, armed and ready with more units on the other side of the house.
All I heard was steps of like shoes coming down the stairs hard and saying, "Get your hands up," you know.
At first, Kiana Jackson, Samari, and TJ's aunt said the family didn't know if they were being robbed or what was happening.
At that time, I'm looking, thinking it's a joke, you know what I mean? But then you see guns. You see like, oh God. You see guns pointed at us. It was like terrifying.
Here you go.
We showed her the video we found of all the cops involved.
What do you see?
A lot of police and so many of them. Like about, oh my God, so many of them.
Had you ever seen that many police before?
No, not at all.
Were you worried about the guns?
Yes. I thought they was going to shoot. But I thought they was going to shoot me and my brother and everybody else.
Jackson said this raid went on for about 40 minutes, and police refused to show them a warrant.
I want to know, why were they there? Who are you? Show us a search warrant. And I asked for a search warrant, I guess, one too many times. And he was like, arrest her.
She said she was scared and got angry and repeatedly told officers she had a right to see the search warrant. And she's right. CPD's own search warrant policy says warrants need to be turned over promptly.
We are people. We have rights.
She says to shut her up, they handcuffed her and held her outside in the cold.
They manhandled me. It took 2 officers to get the cuffs on me.
Chicago Police Search Warrant! The CBS 2 investigators have been exposing wrong raids since August of last year. A total of 4 cases involving 11 children where police held innocent families for long periods of time without showing them the warrants.
They live upstairs. They live upstairs.
And in each case, the mistakes could have been cleared up quickly. In November, we asked Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson about police raiding the wrong homes.
We try to provide the officers all the training we can to ensure that that type of thing doesn't happen.
So how good is the training? Aside from getting addresses wrong and failing to promptly turn over search warrants, the CBS 2 investigators have also been uncovering a pattern of what these families call abusive treatment.
Where did they point the gun at you?
I wanted to like right here, but like straight at it.
Children with guns aimed at them.
Where did they point the rifle?
And terrorized seeing their innocent parents handcuffed. Swearing, threatening, even humiliating some. This innocent woman says she was forced outside in her underwear.
You were humiliated outside.
Yes. When I was sitting there, one officer, he was laughing at me.
They supposed to protect and serve us at all costs, and it's like that night it wasn't. We were the enemies.
So just how often do wrong raids happen? Seems to be a tightly guarded secret at Chicago Police Headquarters.
Are you tracking them? Do you know how many times they get it wrong?
Yeah, we look at it.
Do you have actual numbers?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we do.
Because we've been asking for numbers.
You heard him. The superintendent said they track wrong raids, but CPD still refuses to turn over the numbers. We've been asking for the records for 5 months.
As long as they continue to do that, there will never be trust between citizens and the Chicago Police Department.
Attorney Al Hofeld Jr. represents the Jackson family and other wrong raid victims, including the Mendez family, whose home was raided in August. In that case, Hofeld has been fighting to get all the body camera footage, but key portions are still missing.
You want them?
Absolutely, 100%. We want all of them, every one.
This family says in their case, they're not sure if officers were even wearing body cameras, but they hope so. They believe it will show the damage they say police left behind, and maybe show what happened to TJ's birthday cake, which they found out of the container, off the table, and down on the floor.
And there it was in a corner on the floor with the number 4 stuck in it.
What were you thinking might happen to you and your little brother?
That they was gonna take us to, do you know that jail? That it's a kid jail. Take us to that.
Samari's mother in tears over how everyone was treated, especially the kids.
Yeah, it's just like emotional for my daughter to fully understand and feel the way she feels at just 7 years old.
The family says judges need to be more careful when signing off on these warrants to make sure police really did their homework. The Chicago Police Department did not comment on the birthday raid case. For 5 months, we've been fighting, and we are still fighting, to get records of all their wrong raids. We've gone to the Attorney General for help in forcing CPD to turn those records over. Attorney Al Hofeld Jr. says he's filing a lawsuit against CPD tomorrow. Brad and Erica, just keeps happening.
So, Dave, for 5 months they've stonewalled you. You've covered 4 of these cases, these wrong raids. How many do you know have taken place?
I know about a dozen over the last 18 months, but I've seen many settlements over the years. It's a systemic problem that they have. Something's got to be done.
And hearing from these children, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, and listen to that little girl. I mean, kid jail, that's hard to hear.
Yeah. Dave, thank you.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Footage of police raiding the wrong homes is unsettling enough.
What was the first thing you saw?
Guns.
Now the CBS 2 investigators learn some of the video from the body cameras may be missing. Good evening, I'm Jim Williams. Tonight, our CBS 2 investigators expose Chicago police failing to use body cameras and collect potentially critical evidence. CBS 2's Dave Savini uncovers numerous teams of police officers citywide raiding homes and either not wearing cameras or failing to even turn them on.
There it is, the crowbar.
Battering ram.
Chicago Police Search Warrant! Chicago Police Search Warrant!
Peter Mendez and his father Gilbert watched police body camera video from the night Chicago police officers raided their family's apartment.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Tonight, even more troubling information has been uncovered involving their raid and other raids happening at the homes of innocent people across the city.
They use a tank, ram the door.
The CBS 2 investigators found critical moments that should have been captured on police body cameras are missing or were never recorded in the first place.
Do you want to see an investigation into what happened and why there's no body camera footage for this officer?
Yes.
Or this officer?
Yes.
We first told you 8 months ago how police got a warrant with the wrong apartment number and burst into the Mendez home with guns drawn, terrifying them all, especially Peter, who was 9 at the time, and his little brother Jack.
They really hurt you that day.
We've now learned the first 2 officers through the family's door, Officer Joe Capello and Officer Mike Guzman, along with the sergeant in charge, Russell Egan, failed to use body cameras when they first confronted them. That's when the family says police pointed guns straight at the children.
What do you remember about that rifle?
I remember it being pointed at us.
There should be action taken.
Law professor David Harris works with police departments in different states to improve policies involving use of force, search and seizure, and body camera use.
The key body cameras are either missing or were never recorded in the first place.
It's a problem. It's a problem.
Someone is not being truthful.
State Senator Jacqueline Collins says the Chicago Police Department should be following a 2015 law created in the wake of the Laquan McDonald shooting to improve transparency and trust with citizens. It requires police officers wearing body cameras to activate them, including during the execution of search warrants.
Before they even enter the residence, they need to activate their cameras.
And do you think that there should be a higher level of discipline if they don't follow that?
Of course.
Senator Collins says the cameras are vital to capture what really happens during these raids, especially to children.
What was the first thing you saw?
Guns.
Just last month, the CBS 2 investigators uncovered security camera footage of 17 Chicago police officers getting ready to raid a home with a sledgehammer and battering ram, some wearing hoods, all in plain clothes. The team burst into a Gresham neighborhood home during a 4-year-old child's birthday party.
Guns pointed at us, and I'm basically like, who are you? And it was like, shut the up. We got a search warrant.
So far, police won't confirm if body camera footage from that raid even exists.
And so when the police officer came through this door, what was the police officer doing?
Pointing guns at children while executing search warrants in the wrong homes is a troubling pattern we've been exposing since last year.
They pointed a gun at me.
Where did they point the rifle? How close was it to your face?
It was like around.
I think you have uncovered civil rights violations of certain communities, primarily the Hispanic and Black community.
It's like people think all Mexican and blacks are bad, but they're thinking wrong.
When this happens again and again and again, and nobody seems to do anything about it, now you have a systemic problem.
Professor Harris says CPD needs to be tracking wrong raid data, conducting detailed audits, and using body camera footage to examine problems and hold individual officers accountable.
Are you tracking them?
But the CPD has refused to turn over detailed records of how often wrong raids happen and where. A refusal that led us to this news conference in November.
Do you know how many times they get it wrong?
Yeah, we look at it.
Do you have actual numbers?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we do have it.
Because we've been asking for numbers.
It is this lack of transparency that has Collins upset with Superintendent Eddie Johnson. This month, the department did finally send us a list of 2,708 search warrants served since 2016. But the records failed to clarify which or if any involve wrong raids. In fact, missing from this list are warrants from the birthday raid and Mendez raid.
He needs to come before the public, before a hearing, to indicate why there has been such difficulty and for you to gain the data.
The CBS 2 investigators have also learned specialized units, including Chicago SWAT teams, are not wearing body cameras on search warrant raids like they are required to do in Los Angeles and Dallas.
There's no reason that SWAT teams can't use them too. None.
SWAT raided Cynthia Eason's home, destroying her grandchildren's electronics and toys. And she says pointed guns at all the kids and trained a rifle on her oldest grandson.
I'm like, oh my God, please don't let him shoot my baby.
The only video the family has been able to get of this wrong raid is from a neighbor's cell phone. And the raid in this case is also missing from the list of warrants CPD gave us.
And I remember he was standing like right in the middle and then pointing a gun at us.
Peter is talking about Officer Joe Capello, the one with the assault rifle, the same officer who got the bad warrant and failed to independently check the address. We obtained the police department's equipment and supervisor logs showing Capello was issued a body-worn camera that night and it was fully operational.
You see that box right there that's checked? What does the next word say?
Functioning.
It says he was given a camera at 16:31 hours, which is 4:31 p.m. But when the raid happened about 2 hours later, Capello claimed he wasn't wearing one. So what happened to it?
If you're saying you got it, you have it, and it's functioning, then where is it?
So what do you think that means?
He had one, but he didn't put it on or he turned it off.
And then there's Sergeant Egan, who was in charge of this raid. He said he doesn't recall turning his body camera on. And Officer Guzman, the first guy through the door with a gun drawn, he didn't turn his camera on until halfway through the raid. He turned it on just in time to catch this conversation, admitting they were in the wrong apartment.
He gave us the wrong apartment. He gave us the wrong apartment.
And the footage that does exist shows they kept searching the apartment anyway.
I think that is totally unacceptable, it's unconscionable, and that's why we need to get involved in mandating that they're held accountable for that misuse of power.
Our ongoing investigation into these raids has sparked Collins to create new legislation.
I think that's why we need to move in pushing for legislation, which I would like to call Peter's Amendment.
The law will include body camera and discipline requirements and protection for children when police search homes. And she's naming it after Peter Mendez.
How do you feel about that they're thinking about making a new law based on your name?
I'm just surprised because I'm just a normal kid. I feel like I'm sticking up for a lot of kids that have gone through stuff.
as one brave kid. Police officials did not answer any questions about the raids and missing body camera video in the Mendez case. They did tell us 8,000 cameras have been issued, but we've learned hundreds of officers are not using them. Because of our findings, Senator Collins plans to call for hearings in Springfield regarding her proposed search warrant and body camera law.
A family is at home sleeping when Chicago police forced them into the cold at gunpoint with their hands up. It was another raid where young children were traumatized, and as CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini uncovered, one of them, an 8-year-old, was even handcuffed.
What were they saying?
Come out with your hands up.
Dominique Wilson says she feared one wrong move and any one of her children might have been shot.
I was very, very, very scared, nervous.
It was early morning on a school day when she and her children woke up to a swarm of officers.
They had their guns pointed at me and my children.
Police yelling over a bullhorn for them to get out of their home.
And you came all the way out here?
All the way out. They say walk, keep your hands up, walk.
So you were surrounded by police right
Surrounded by police right now with rifles pointed at us.
Then she says those assault rifles held by SWAT officers followed their every move.
The rifles are pointed at us as we walking.
Royal Wilson, the child at the back of the line, says they were all crying, especially his little sister.
I was worried about my sister most because she only 6 years old.
And things were about to get worse.
They say turn, turn, turn.
Now you're all out here in the street.
We all out here in the street.
That's when the children watched their mom get handcuffed. But then officers started to hone in on 8-year-old Royal.
I didn't know what was going to happen.
He says they grabbed him by his wrists and cuffed him too.
They made me stand up straight and my hands was behind my back and they had them tight.
And you were handcuffed like that on the street?
Yes.
What did it do to you to see him handcuffed?
It took the breath out of me.
My legs are shaking.
You're just a third grader.
Yes.
So why were police there? According to the complaint for search warrant, a confidential informant told them there were illegal guns in the home. And based on that John Doe's word, the search warrant was granted. But it was bad information and there were no guns found in any rooms. So the family said police then started tearing apart the ceiling. Meanwhile, the 8-year-old was still cuffed.
And then you had them there for how long?
30.
30 minutes?
Yes.
Chicago Police Search Warrant!
For nearly a year, the CBS 2 investigators have been exposing an alarming pattern of police traumatizing children during other wrong raids, swearing at children, pointing guns at them, and handcuffing innocent parents and relatives in front of them.
We can't continue to have that happen.
Newly elected Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who during CBS 2's mayoral debate in March responded to our investigative findings and even called for accountability within the police department when it comes to these raids.
And that's something that the superintendent has to own and take responsibility for.
What did you think might happen to you?
I didn't know. I was just scared.
And around the same time the third grader was being cuffed, the city of Chicago was settling a lawsuit related to another innocent young boy.
He's scared.
It happened last year. He was just 10 years old and was so scared he urinated in his pants.
They're making him pee on himself.
They just have a modus operandi where they come on with excessive force from the very beginning. It's a strategy.
Al Holfeld Jr. is planning to file a lawsuit against the city on behalf of the Wilson family. It's his 5th case involving Chicago police raiding a home where children had guns pointed at them and are now suffering from trauma.
Hopefully you're showing the public the need for meaningful reform and retraining and new policy.
In fact, our ongoing CBS 2 investigation into how wrong police raids affect children has led to proposed legislation. House Bill 51 outlines steps officers would have to take when children are present during police activity to make sure they're safe from harm, both psychologically
I'd be waking up in the middle of the night.
and physically. Royal said police even hurt him by putting on the cuffs too tight.
And you got a bruise?
Yeah, I had a bruise
Where?
right here around my wrist.
The family said police waited a half hour to remove his cuffs and then released all of the children to a relative. The adults, including Dominique, 2 other sons, both adults, and their girlfriends, remained held outside for a total of 2 hours, even though it was raining and just 37 degrees.
We wet, soaking wet?
Soaking wet.
Meanwhile, here's what police were doing inside to their ceiling, smashing through drywall in their hallway and bedrooms, ripping apart the ceiling as police kept searching for weapons. So what did they find?
Nothing.
So they raided your home, pointed guns at your kids, and they blew out your ceiling to search for guns, and they found nothing.
Nothing.
According to the search warrant, the informant claimed one of her adult sons who was visiting had guns in the house, but there were none, and no one was arrested.
Where were the rifles pointed?
Towards us.
But it's the treatment of children by police that really angers this mom.
No one should get treated the way that me and my family and all these other families got treated. These are children that's being traumatized.
Superintendent Johnson has declined our repeated requests for an interview. Chicago police say it is not CPD protocol to handcuff children. Initially, they say they did not know the age of the child, and once the age of the child was determined, handcuffs were removed. As for House Bill 51, it passed the Senate earlier today and is now headed to the House for a vote. Dave Savini, CBS 2 Investigators.
Now to a promise of action and change following a nearly year-long CBS 2 investigation of Chicago police raiding the wrong homes.
Innocent children like this little boy traumatized by guns pointed at them. CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini exposes 2 new cases along with what the mayor and inspector general vow to do.
Did anybody knock?
No.
They just came in?
First, they busted through the doors of his family's apartment, and then came the guns.
They had their finger on a trigger.
A lot of guns, handguns and assault rifles like these.
So they were pointing the guns at your sisters? And what were you thinking then?
I'm thinking maybe they were going to get shot.
8-year-old J.J. Jackson was playing in his room when Chicago police burst in. His 11-year-old sister, Talia, says guns were in their faces.
I was afraid and confused.
And tonight, a disturbing pattern continues as more families are accusing Chicago police of bad raids.
Chicago police search warrant!
Busting in homes and drawing weapons on innocent families.
How many of you had guns pointed at you?
Including Jolanda Blassingame's family.
And I felt scared for my life.
Her boys were playing video games while she was cooking dinner when she says police threw a flashbang grenade into her home.
How many of you were told to get down on the ground?
Police used the word of an unnamed informant who, according to the complaint for search warrant, said weekly heroin sales were being made by this man at the address where Blassingame and her kids lived.
They had an informant.
Yeah.
That's what they told you?
Yeah.
But we found the man police were looking for didn't even live there.
This is the person police were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But no one's ever even seen this guy.
Nope. I knew they had the wrong apartment when they looked at each other crazy.
Dave.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot says these wrong raids have to stop immediately.
We can't have this.
And now is reacting to our 10-month CBS 2 investigation, exposing case after case of bad Chicago police raids happening at the homes of innocent people across the city.
Mayor, we've now had dozens of victims of wrong police raids.
Yep.
Chicago police search warrant!
Police using bad information without properly investigating.
They live upstairs.
Then busting into the wrong homes.
He gave us the wrong apartment.
Wrong homes, wrong targets, and pointing guns at the wrong people, including kids, over and over again.
I thought they were going to shoot him.
Where did they point the gun at you?
I wanted to like right here.
Where did they point the rifle? How were they holding them?
Like this.
So we're going to dig down, look at these specific incidents, see what we can learn from them, and try to, as best we can, not to repeat those kinds of mistakes.
Like when 8-year-old Royal Wilson's family showed us how they were walked out at gunpoint and how the 3rd grader was handcuffed for 30 minutes.
I was just scared. My legs were shaking.
Every one of these incidents is an aggravator and a perpetuator of this mistrust that exists.
Chicago Inspector General Joe Ferguson knows he has a lot of work to do to fix this.
A number of the things that you've brought to us have prompted us to start to look at aspects of this.
One aspect we put a spotlight on is the trauma to innocent kids. The IG has now launched a full-scale investigation into the methods Chicago police are using to obtain and execute search warrants.
They use a bar and they knock it open.
So police did this?
Yes.
Crystal Archie says her son JJ and her daughters now fear the police.
The first raid was probably the worst.
You heard that right. The first raid was the worst.
How many times was your home invaded?
3 times. 3 times.
She says all 3 raids and warrants were for people she never even heard of.
Each time, the warrant was for nobody in your house?
Each time.
The warrants named suspected drug dealers known as Peanut and Lord T.
We don't have names in our home like
Lord
T and
Peanut
at all.
All 3 raids happened during the last 6 months, and while no one in her home was ever arrested, she says they were left with a threat of even more raids to come.
These officers told the children that they would be back.
Every single one of these raid situations is a form of imposition of trauma by the government on citizens of the city.
The CBS 2 investigators have been wanting to tell you how often something as traumatic as this actually happens to Chicago families. And we've been battling Chicago police for nearly a year to get records released.
So you raised this issue with me a couple weeks back, and the very next day, I raised it with the superintendent and his leadership team.
But Chicago police top brass don't want you to have that information. So we went to the Illinois Attorney General's office, which forced CPD to release at least a small sliver of data. So what did the police eventually turn over? Only a fraction of search warrant records, full of holes with thousands of warrants missing. CPD gave us information on just 2,708 search warrants since 2016. Yet we've uncovered there were more than 11,000 CPD warrants signed off on by the Cook County State's Attorney's Office during that time frame. So why isn't CPD releasing the other 8,000 plus warrants? They refuse to explain.
You raised the question of FOIA. I'm all about it. I don't want people to have to hire lawyers, sue the city to get access to basic information.
The 2,708 search warrant records CPD did turn over raises yet another question. They showed just 42 arrests. That means more than 98% of the time, no one was arrested.
We have the right and the authority to have access to all the records of the police department.
Chicago's Inspector General says he plans on using his authority to get the records CPD has refused to release to us and to get to the truth.
We should make sure that there is tracking and accountability.
Do you believe we've uncovered troubling information?
You've absolutely uncovered a sufficient number of situations that have resulted in really bad outcomes.
So it was the wrong apartment?
Yeah.
But wait until you hear just how wrong they got it. Remember when we told you about the raid on the Blassingame family and how the target police were looking for it didn't even live there?
They didn't investigate right. They didn't do anything right.
We found his name is Derek Bell. And if the police would have checked their own criminal database, they would have discovered what we uncovered in minutes. At the time of the raid, Bell was actually 200 miles away and had been for years, serving time in a downstate prison for murder.
The informant told them that he'd been buying heroin out of the second floor apartment for 2 months from a guy named Ace, Derek Bell.
And then nobody studied but me and my boys.
Again, no arrests were made, and her boys were all traumatized in the process with guns pointed at them.
It's something I won't forget.
What it does when we make mistakes, and particularly when we make mistakes in the way in which we deal with our children, that leaves an indelible scar that is very, very difficult to repair.
What are you thinking right now?
That they may come back.
For 10 months, we've been requesting an interview with Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson. He has refused every request. The Inspector General says it could take a year to fully audit the police department's search warrant practices. Tomorrow, attorney Al Hofeld Jr. is filing a federal lawsuit against CPD on behalf of the Archie family. Police have refused to turn over records involving both of these raids, and also they've refused to turn over body camera footage too involving those raids. Brad and Erica. It just keeps happening. We keep getting more families coming forward. We encourage people who have information that have been rated wrongly to call us.
Yeah, I have about a half dozen questions for you, but we know you will continue to follow it.
Got it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
This is Peter Mendez. Last year, he tearfully told us his story of police wrongly raiding his home and pointing guns at him and his family. Here's Peter now, thrilled because Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the Peter Mendez Act this week. It is a law to protect kids, a result of a CBS 2 investigation. We surprised the 11-year-old with the news.
But what I really came here to tell you is that the law is being signed.
The law?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, you're not. What?
The Peter Mendez Act.
What?
A happy, smiling Peter Mendez. Very different from when we first met him exactly 1 year ago to the day. When he and his family told us how police busted into their home.
Chicago Police Search Warrant!
With weapons drawn, pointing guns at them all, including Peter and his little brother Jack. It was the wrong home, and their case led to our year-long investigation into police repeatedly raiding wrong homes, case after case, cuffing innocent people and traumatizing families, especially children.
They had their finger on a trigger.
How were they holding them?
Like this.
And I felt scared for my life.
Where did they point the rifle?
I think it's blatant disrespect and disregard for the emotional well-being of our children.
Because of our findings, State Senator Jackie Collins sponsored the legislation requiring police training on how children experience trauma by police actions. It also requires training on de-escalation tactics for when kids are involved.
What's your reaction?
I'm just surprised. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. It's a dream come true.
A dream come true for this 6th grader after dealing with sleepless, nightmare-filled nights and a PTSD diagnosis.
We can't have this.
Earlier this summer, Mayor Lori Lightfoot reacted to our investigation. She wants wrong raids and mistreatment of children to stop.
We're going to dig down, look at these specific incidents, see what we can learn from them, and try to, as best we can, not to repeat those kinds of mistakes.
Also responding to what we exposed, Chicago Inspector General Joe Ferguson.
Every single one of these raid situations is a form of imposition of trauma by the government on citizens of the city.
He launched a full-scale probe into the methods Chicago police are using to obtain and execute search warrants. The cops who raided Peter's home are being investigated by COPA. That, along with the new Peter Mendez Act, gives him hope for change.
There's going to be justice for the community and everybody that has ever felt wrong raids.
Despite a year of repeated requests, the Chicago Police Department continues to refuse to turn over records related to wrong raids and have refused to turn over key body camera videos. On CBSChicago.com, we have a form you can fill out if you have been the victim of a wrong police raid. The bill goes into effect January 1st.
For the first time, you are about to hear from Chicago police officers who raided the wrong home. They were caught on body camera busting through doors and continuing their search even after they knew they were in the wrong place. CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini has spent more than a year exposing a pattern of wrong raids, leaving parents and children traumatized.
You hit the apartment of the Mendezes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Chicago police officer Joe Capello got a search warrant to raid a suspected drug dealer's home, but he didn't make sure he was hitting the right place.
Chicago Police Search Warrant!
He and a team of officers with handguns and an assault rifle raided the home of an innocent family.
What's the full name of that weapon?
It's a Spike Tactical AR-15 rifle.
It is a weapon the Mendez family says they will never forget.
What did this erroneous search warrant do to your lives?
It's tore it upside down.
While being questioned for a lawsuit filed by the family, Capello and other officers give a deeply disturbing look into how little police work they actually did before raiding this home.
I'm so sorry.
Mr. and Mrs. Mendez and their children, Peter and Jack, were not the intended targets of your search warrant, correct?
No, they were not.
Here's how Capello got the warrant approved. He made a drug arrest the day before and flipped that suspect into becoming a confidential informant he called John Doe. John Doe then gave Capello the name and address of a man he claimed was a major drug dealer. But Capello never investigated to see if John Doe's tip was even true or if the address was correct.
I was not able to do surveillance of that due to the nature of our hours.
Capello admits to just driving by the multi-unit apartment building.
Did you request a covert car?
We don't have one available to us in the patrol. Sometimes we don't have all the assets we need in terms to do extra surveillance, and there's an overtime issue thing and things of that nature.
He was also asked why he didn't use other investigative tools to verify the address.
Was there something preventing you from contacting a utility company to find out who the account holder of record for that apartment was?
I didn't know I was aware I was able to do that.
That wasn't something that you were trained on in the police academy?
No, I was not.
And with no verification that the address was correct, Capello's superior signed off on the warrant anyway, and so did prosecutors and a judge.
Did Judge Burns ask you any questions about your complaint for search warrant or any of the information in your complaint?
No.
This failure to do even a minimal investigation is just one of the reasons the Mendez family is suing the Chicago Police Department. And there are many more reasons, starting with Peter Mendez, who says he was terrified by police pointing guns at him while officers handcuffed his dad.
This is the saddest moment.
He and his brother are two of at least 23 children the CBS 2 investigators have found traumatized by bad raids. Our year-long investigation found officers repeatedly failing to investigate informant tips, busting into homes of innocent families, and treating them badly.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Capello and other officers say they treated the Mendez family well.
Everyone on the team was more than polite to the whole family.
Get on the ground!
They were treated with the utmost respect through the whole time in the search warrant.
The family strongly disagrees and says from the very beginning, police showed zero respect.
They really hurt you that day.
And the warrant required officers to knock first, but they just busted in.
Officers forced the door open and then entered, correct?
That's correct.
The family is really angry with what officers were caught saying on body camera video, whispering that they got it wrong. This is Officer Guzman.
He gave us the wrong apartment. He gave us the wrong apartment.
Officer Guzman is talking to this man, Officer Hernandez. Hernandez even gave the thumbs down, indicating it was a bad raid. This should be the point where officers apologize and leave. Instead, they kept searching. You can see them going through the medicine cabinet, searching kitchen drawers, even the microwave.
Yeah, I wasn't really doing a search of this residence.
When questioned about it, Officer Hernandez said he wasn't really searching. But look, he even goes through Peter's backpack.
I did continue to do a search, but it wasn't like a systematic search where I was lifting things up and throwing things around, and I was kind of just doing a surface search.
And here, Officer Capello is talking to another officer who actually chuckles when they find out they're in the wrong home, and they kept searching too.
Bad. Hey, just throw a party for me.
Capello, under oath, said he meant throw a pity party for him because he thought he was going to get in trouble for getting the address wrong.
Did you hear him chuckle?
So yeah, someone chuckled. I'm not sure who
Okay.
it was.
They live upstairs. They live upstairs.
The Mendez family says most traumatizing were the guns. Capello denies pointing his rifle at anyone.
Okay. My rifle is at my navel line, and I'm walking like this at all times.
All right.
If I was, my elbow would have been tucked in, and it would have been up here.
Exactly where he pointed his rifle should have been caught on body camera video, but Capello failed to wear one, even though he was issued a working one hours before the raid.
You were never disciplined for not wearing your body camera that day, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And there's been no discipline for any officer involved in the Mendez raid.
I wasn't punished in any way. I wasn't no reprimand or anything like that.
Did anybody talk to you about the investigation that you did?
No.
And what about that drug-dealing suspect police were so eager to catch?
He was providing narcotics for that area and still is to this very day. This very dangerous drugs, heroin and crack cocaine.
You would think police got a new warrant, made an arrest, and confiscated the stash of drugs, right? Well, they didn't. No new warrant and no arrest.
To your knowledge, did the Chicago police ever go back and hit the correct apartment, the apartment where the targets actually lived?
No.
And since that raid happened back in 2017, that means the real target has remained free for 2 years. The Chicago Police Department refuses to turn over all of its wrong raid data, and Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson continues to refuse a sit-down interview on the subject. 2 more families just contacted us about more wrong raids. Brad?
Yeah, I might not talk to you either, Dave. A baffling number of gaffes. Thank you, sir. And good Monday evening. Our CBS 2 investigators are getting results. The Chicago Police Department under investigation for officers obtaining bad search warrants and raiding homes of innocent families. Mayor Lori Lightfoot takes action as a result of Dave Savini's year-long CBS 2 wrong raids investigation. And Dave here is now with an update.
Brad, truly amazing. We've exposed case after case of young children traumatized by these bad raids. After seeing our findings, Mayor Lightfoot says these wrong raids have to stop.
Imagine having somebody burst into your house with guns drawn. I mean, it's a traumatic experience for those who have been involved in this.
This is the saddest moment.
Our year-long CBS 2 investigation into police raiding the wrong homes has led Mayor Lori Lightfoot to take action.
We've talked to the superintendent and his team about it.
Our year-long probe found officers repeatedly failing to investigate and verify informant tips, busting into the wrong homes, treating innocent families and children like Peter Mendez badly.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
That's Peter in the shadows, just inches from a police gun.
I even tried to shake their hands. Two of them just shrugged by. And then one just shook my hand, because that was the guy that realized that they were in the wrong apartment.
How did it make you feel when the officers wouldn't even shake your hand?
I just felt that they're unpolite, because, you know, I was trying to be nice.
This is now one of the issues that our chief risk officer is going to be focusing on with the police department to make sure that they get it right.
Give me a hand, brother.
Now under investigation, CPD search warrant policies and procedures and how they are getting and executing search warrants.
What we need to do is actually get it right. We shouldn't be going into the wrong house, period. No one's going to be perfect, but we have a long way to go to make sure that we are getting this right.
Also making sure police get it right, Chicago's Inspector General Joe Ferguson, he launched a full audit of CPD's search warrant system to identify problems leading to these bad raids. Brad, it's just so hard to see what's happened to these children.
Yeah, the Inspector General is on top of it, launching an investigation, which will surely lead to change. The mayor is trumpeting the same tune. And still nothing from the superintendent?
He will not sit down and do an interview with us one-on-one. We want to ask him all these questions and why he told us last year that they do track the wrong raids, and now he's backpedaling and telling us, oh, you know what? We don't track the wrong raids.
Don't even track
Sounds like
them.
they should be doing something here.
Dave Savini, thank you. Dave has spoken to more than a dozen families whose homes were wrongly raided by Chicago police. You can read those stories and the response from the police department on our website, cbschicago.com/unwarranted.
This is CBS 2 News at 10.
And good Monday evening. A family ordered to put their hands up, forced out of their home. A boy as young as 8 handcuffed. The family, the victims of a bad police raid. Tonight, they're trying to get videotaped evidence, and so are we, but Chicago police refusing to turn it over. 2 investigator Dave Savini now has more, and you also have, Dave, the mayor's attention.
We sure do. Brad, as families fight for the release of body camera footage, Mayor Lori Lightfoot is ordering the Chicago Police Department to work with the city's chief risk officer to fully investigate how the police obtain and execute search warrants. The mayor says these wrong raids have to stop as more victims come forward.
Get down! Get down the ground! Don't do it! Get down!
Imagine having somebody burst into your house with guns drawn.
And imagine not being able to get the city to turn over the body camera video that proves it.
Do you feel you have a right to see that video?
Yes, I do. Those are my legal rights.
Dominique Wilson wants the police to turn over video showing what officers did to her and her children when they raided the family's home in March.
What were they saying?
Come out with your hands up.
Right now, the family can only show us.
They made me stand up straight and my hands was behind my back and they had them tight.
Police are accused of using force on the children and making the family stand in the cold rain for hours.
I was worried about my sister most because she only 6 years old.
They believe police body camera video will reveal police misconduct.
When it comes to your 8-year-old son, what do you believe that body camera footage will show?
It's going to show them placing my 8-year-old son in handcuffs. How scared he was. Traumatized.
My legs are shaking.
I have every right to see those videos.
But the city refused to turn over their body camera video, not to her and not to us. Both our Freedom of Information requests were denied.
Do you think they're hiding something?
Yes. They hiding that they put rifles to me and my children's heads.
During our year-long investigation of bad Chicago police raids, the CBS 2 investigators have uncovered this among 23 cases of children who've had police point guns at them or their families.
Where do they point the gun?
It was like around.
They had their finger on a trigger.
What does a 14-year-old think at that moment?
That's your last breath.
And body camera video isn't the only thing CPD has refused. During our investigation, they have also refused to give us access to public records related to bad search warrants that lead to these raids.
Are you tracking them? Do you know how many times they get it wrong?
Yeah, we look at it.
Do you have actual numbers?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we do have that.
Actually, Superintendent Eddie Johnson and his staff don't have that information. After nearly a year of repeatedly asking for numbers, Chicago police have admitted to CBS 2 they don't even keep track of all the times police raid the wrong homes.
Do you know how many times they get it wrong?
The superintendent has refused more than a dozen requests for a one-on-one interview to discuss what we've uncovered in these cases. His chief communications officer, Anthony Guglielmi, said the superintendent does not have the time and CBS 2's ratings are not high enough for him to do an interview on this topic. All the while, more families are being traumatized.
I kept asking what were they here for. I kept asking for the warrant. And they pretty much ignored me.
This is Tony Tate. In August, she and her 2 adult children and baby girl were met with handguns and at least one high-powered rifle.
I had it covered to like this.
They say police pointed weapons at all of them. One officer with a shotgun zeroed in on 18-year-old Christopher.
He was the one with the shotgun. He came and cuffed me. He had the shotgun on my back before anybody else came in.
You were worried about him?
Yes.
She was also afraid for her oldest daughter, Sierra, who was holding her baby sister.
I kept saying, I have a baby. And it was like he wasn't listening. So when the man came around the corner, he pointed his gun at me while she was in my arm. And I was just holding her, just crying, just praying that he didn't shoot me because he didn't see what was in my arm.
Police had bad information from an informant. And as in other cases we've exposed, police failed to independently verify the informant's tip.
Have you guys ever seen this man?
No. When they came in, they said that they was looking for somebody by the name of Draco.
The CBS 2 investigators found their suspect. Records show he's never lived at the Tate's address and has an address in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
What do you want to say to the police department?
Just get your information correct before you just come in on innocent families, innocent working families.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot says this has got to stop.
It has to stop because who's to say next time a kid doesn't get hurt bad?
Someone's going to have to be held accountable for it.
And that's why the body camera video is so important. CPD confirms they have 16 hours of video from the Wilson raid. They claim it's unduly burdensome, too much work to review and release. But CPD had no problem spending the time to review and release 70 hours of video in the Jussie Smollett case.
You're filming us, right?
Chicago police released the 70 hours of video when they were upset the actor was not prosecuted for filing a false police report. The Wilson family believes the case of a traumatized, handcuffed child should be just as upsetting, if not more so.
What does it say to you when they claim it's unduly burdensome to turn over that footage?
They stating that it's too difficult.
So when they want to release it, they release it?
Yes, they do.
What does that do to the public when they won't turn over the body camera footage?
They have no integrity.
Dominique Wilson sued the city, and a judge is now ordering the Chicago Police Department to turn over the body camera video. Chicago's Inspector General has launched a separate audit into the police search warrant practices. And Tony Tate and her family are also planning a lawsuit. No one came back to fix their damaged doors on their apartment either. Still no sit down with the superintendent, Brad.
Yeah, more to come once we see that video. But just to clarify here, and I've seen you follow this for a year, doggedly trying to get data on it. They said numerous times they have data on how many wrong raids they do. They said it on camera, and now they say they don't have it?
You heard him. He said, we have it. I just don't have it off the top of my head. Now they're saying they don't keep track.
Huh. Maybe that's why they don't want to talk with us. Good work, Dave. Thank you.
The CBS 2 investigators have obtained body camera video Chicago police did not want released.
Yeah, it shows an 8-year-old boy standing on the streets in handcuffs after officers wrongly raided his home. 2 investigator Dave Savini and the boy's own mother fought with the department for months to finally reveal what happened to them when officers busted into their home on a bad tip.
The body camera's on.
6 a.m. on a freezing cold school day in March, police surround the Wilson family on the street. Just yards away, inside the family's home, other officers detonate a non-lethal explosive device called a flashbang grenade. Police are looking for guns based on a tip from a confidential informant called a John Doe. Officers search every room, toss the home, even the children's toys. They also bust open the ceiling and climb up to search. A terrifying experience, especially for the little boy in the blue sweatshirt. His name is Royal. He's only 8 years old. Instead of getting ready for elementary school, police have his hands behind his back, handcuffs.
He's an 8-year-old child. Why is he in handcuffs?
The family says this was a bad raid and are outraged with how the children were treated, especially Royal. His mom, Dominique Wilson, repeatedly asked police to remove the cuffs from her son.
What did you think might happen to you?
I didn't know. I was just scared. My legs were shaking.
Did you ever think a police officer would handcuff a 3rd grader?
No.
Which one is it? How old are you?
I have every right to see those videos.
That was Royal's mother 3 weeks ago. She was angry with Chicago police, which refused to turn over this body camera video for months. Police initially told her it was too burdensome for them to review 16 hours of video for release.
It's burdensome because it's something to hide. It's something that you don't want to be exposed.
But then suddenly, after we aired her interview exposing the city's refusal to turn it over, she finally got it. And it shows her in handcuffs too. She was cuffed for 2 hours.
I ain't never been in handcuffs before. Never. And my arm is like really hurting.
Body camera's on. Body cameras are on. Don't worry about that.
But there's still key body camera video missing. The video the city did turn over doesn't include the first 20 minutes of the raid, when the Wilson family said they were ordered out at gunpoint.
What were they saying?
Come out with your hands up.
Without that video, they can only demonstrate that part.
They hiding that they put rifles to me and my children's heads, aim rifles at us.
In the video we do have, some of the cops on the scene can be heard talking about the tactics the SWAT team used. First, they joked about the use of a flashbang grenade.
Was that a flashbang that they did?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, necessary, man. Necessary.
The scene is safe.
They also questioned the SWAT team's decision to march the family out to the street.
They came out and they're like, "There's a search warrant on your house. Come out." I'm like, that's like the worst way to do this.
And after all that, 40 officers on the scene, a busted ceiling, they found nothing. No guns, no arrests. The informant was wrong.
Why is it that he in handcuffs? He's an 8-year-old child. Why is he in handcuffs? For safety, ain't nobody else in handcuffs but grown-ups. That ain't cool, man. That ain't good for him with being a child. No, wait. He's a kid. He's 8 years old. He already experiencing something that ain't right for him, for his eyes.
Police records show the raid was executed at 6:03 a.m. and body camera footage reveals Royal was questioned and held in handcuffs until 6:35 a.m. when they were finally removed.
How long did you have the handcuffs on you?
30.
30 minutes?
Yes.
That's an extraordinary event that should happen only in the most extreme circumstances, and that would require a hell of a lot of justification.
Chicago Inspector General Joe Ferguson has the authority to investigate the Chicago Police Department's policies and procedures.
It needs to be thoroughly examined.
It needs to be thoroughly examined.
As a result of our year-long investigation into bad Chicago police raids, which have traumatized dozens of innocent children, Ferguson has launched an investigation into how CPD obtains and executes search warrants.
No, government is not supposed to have basically free license to do whatever the heck they want and leave a place in whatever heck condition they feel like leaving it in.
We take it seriously and we're trying to fix the issues.
Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson continues to refuse a one-on-one interview with CBS 2 about the wrong raid cases we've uncovered. But he did publicly acknowledge the problem at a news conference earlier this month.
When we do these search warrants, there's nothing more important than the trust that the community has in us. So accidental or erroneous search warrants are, unacceptable.
So they raided your home, pointed guns at your kids, and they blew out your ceiling to search for guns, and they found nothing.
Nothing.
And what they left behind, she says, was pain.
When you do something wrong, you fix it. And that's what needs to be done. It needs to be fixed.
The Wilson family is suing the city. Our year-long investigation, Unwarranted, exposed the cases of dozens of innocent children that had guns pointed at them during wrong raids. As a result, a new law was created requiring police training to deal with children during traumatic events like these raids. It goes into effect next year. Brad and Erica, back to you.
Naked and handcuffed in her own home. A licensed clinical social worker humiliated and scarred when Chicago police raided the wrong home.
Yeah, tonight the city agency that investigates police misconduct is launching a new case because of the story that you're about to see. To investigator Dave Savini with the exclusive details.
I want us all to sing about how awesome our God is. Bless your name, Jesus. Here we go.
It is a Sunday morning.
My God is awesome.
And Jeanette Young is in her safe place,
Thank you for this time together, Father God. Thank
volunteering at her church.
you with the love of Christ, Father God.
When she's not here, singing and praying, she's helping children and victims of violence. A licensed clinical social worker with a master's degree from the University of Illinois, Chicago.
So you're used to dealing with people who go through traumas?
Absolutely.
Another safe place used to be her home, here at the edge of the West Loop, before it was invaded in February.
I'll never forget it, February 21st. I was at home, got home about 6:30, getting ready to watch my normal Thursday night shows. Had undressed in my bedroom, getting ready to get comfortable. And then I just hear these loud slams on my door.
A Chicago police battering ram, 7 strikes. Marks on her door still here as a reminder 9 months later.
Then what did they do?
They just had these big guns, long guns with like scopes and lights and things on them.
And the guns were pointed directly at you?
Absolutely. I thought they were gonna shoot me. I really thought they were gonna shoot me.
It was 7 p.m. and police officers were executing a search warrant in the wrong home.
I had my hands up and they were yelling at me, "We have a warrant for this home."
Police were acting on a vague tip about a 23-year-old man who a confidential informant claimed had a handgun and ammunition. Police were supposed to be across the street, inside this building. Instead, they burst into Ann Jeanette's home, and she says they did it right at the moment she was changing her clothes and was completely naked.
I just can remember just crying and yelling like, "Please let me put clothes on."
They didn't, but they did give her handcuffs.
This is a person. This is a female being exposed.
Eventually, police let Ann Jeanette make a phone call. And she went back to her safe place.
That phone call.
Yeah.
You remember it?
Yeah. Oh, I remember it.
Reverend Ray Hawkins, the associate pastor at her church.
When you got to the scene, how was she acting? What was she saying?
She was definitely distraught. She was shaking and crying. Just the humiliation, the total dehumanizing of a person.
And I just cried. Now I can't, on Thursday nights, instead of me wanting to relax and get into my Thursday night shows that I had been doing for so many years.
What's going on right now?
I can see it all over again.
What do you see?
I could just see them walking around my house and, and feeling humiliated.
They got a warrant in their hand.
Ann Jeanette Young isn't the first person to come forward to CBS 2 investigators and call out the Chicago Police Department for humiliating her during a wrong raid.
So you're standing out on 71st Street in your socks and basically underwear and pajamas.
That's it.
And it's 30 degrees out.
30 degrees out, freezing.
To be led out in nothing but your t-shirt and underwear for the whole entire neighborhood to see, the police, to be humiliated like that.
Because you're almost naked.
Yeah.
Got clear. They are among dozens of victims we found during our year-long investigation who were traumatized by Chicago police raiding the wrong homes.
When I was sitting there, one officer, he was laughing at me. You can imagine how that feels.
These people are treated less than human.
Keenan Salter is suing the city of Chicago on behalf of Anjanette Young. And like other innocent families from other wrong raids, get down the wrong door! They want to see the body camera video.
As I discussed the body cam, it bothers me because that means that images of Miss Young are out there in the department. Who's seen it? Mm-hmm. You know, how do we know that that didn't become the brunt of jokes when they got back to the station?
We know body cameras recorded the bad raid. The police report says so. Young asked the police department to turn that video over to her.
I want it to be known how they treated me.
You want to help other people?
Absolutely. What man in there does have a mom or sister or daughter and could have compassion for a woman that's standing here naked?
So sad. Even though the bad raid happened 9 months ago, it wasn't until after we broke this story on CBS 2 this morning and on our website that the Civilian Office of Police Accountability finally contacted her. They emailed her saying they are now opening an investigation into her case. If you or anyone you know believe police wrongly entered your home, tell us at cbschicago.com/unwarranted. So guys, we're just waiting. Over and over again, requests for interviews denied. Denied. And this investigation not launched until we did the story.
And COPA's not offering any explanation as to why it took so long.
No, not getting anything. They should have launched an investigation when she filed the lawsuit 9 months ago.
Yeah, we know Superintendent Eddie Johnson and the police department stance so far has been stonewalling you in your efforts to get interviews, more body cam footage. Any idea if that stonewalling will change under the interim superintendent, Charlie Beck?
Well, they had an opportunity here, and the department, again, refused an interview. And they're also refusing to turn that video over to us.
Okay.
And her.
Dave Savini, thank you.
The state's top prosecutor says he's alarmed by a pattern of Chicago police raiding the wrong homes. The CBS 2 investigators have been exposing the bad raids for more than a year.
Guns pointed at children, a woman held naked in handcuffs, innocent families traumatized when officers failed to verify addresses. Here's CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini.
Well, it's disturbing. It's disturbing as, a father who's raised children in Chicago.
Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul wants to see the disturbing pattern we've exposed of police raiding the wrong homes stopped. Get down the wrong door! Our year-long investigation documented 24 cases of children who had guns pointed at them or their families, leaving them traumatized.
It's heartbreaking. I had an opportunity to review some of the stories, and what hollered out at me is that the trauma that the kids endured, the innocent kids endured as a result of these situations. You can't undo that.
One of those kids traumatized was Peter Mendez. His home wrongly raided, guns pointed at his family, and officers kept searching even after they knew they were in the wrong place.
He gave us the wrong apartment. He gave us the wrong apartment.
So what did that body camera discover?
Unconstitutional policing practices. Once you have firm knowledge and you acknowledge and you admit that you're in the wrong place, your policing is unconstitutional. It's against the law, and there should be accountability for that.
Another problem we uncovered in the Mendez case, the first few officers through the door didn't wear or activate their body cameras. The AG says all officers, including SWAT, should wear body cameras, and anyone who fails to activate them should face serious consequences.
Because unless you have an investigative report like yours, who's to know whether or not somebody has failed to turn their body cam on.
As Attorney General, his job includes enforcing the federal court order consent decree, which mandates Chicago police make reforms, especially stopping the practice of excessive force.
They just had these big guns, long guns with like scopes and lights and things on them.
And the guns were pointed directly at you?
Absolutely.
Anjanette Young said police busted through her door, wrongly raiding her home while she was changing her clothes. She said she was naked, handcuffed, and humiliated.
What man in there does have a mom or sister or daughter and could have compassion for a woman that's standing here naked?
Anjanette Young, handcuffed naked. What was your reaction to that?
It's outrageous, right? It's outrageous. It's again, it's traumatic, and it undermines what our office is trying to do and trying to rebuild trust in law enforcement.
CPD has told us they do not track wrong raids. Should they be tracking wrong raids?
Absolutely, and I think they should do so in a manner that they can learn from them.
Our CBS 2 investigation of these wrong raids has led to some action. A full audit by the city's inspector general, and the mayor has ordered a review of CPD raid policies.
When things come into the light of day, it calls for policymakers and those engaged to react, and it's a good thing. And I have to say this notion suggested by some that moving towards an unbiased policing, a constitutional policing, somehow compromises public safety is a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of garbage.
The Attorney General says changing something as difficult as this does not happen overnight, but he has hope in new leadership at City Hall. His office is helping in our Freedom of Information fight to get the Chicago Police Department to release data on wrong raids, along with the release of key body camera videos in cases like Anjanette Young. He says he's going to keep fighting for us and keep fighting to get those records for us.
All right, strong words, making news again. Dave Savini, thank you.
It was a normal Friday. It was at nighttime. We hadn't had dinner yet. I was hungry. The TV was on. It was a reality show. Jack was in the hallway. I can see him from where I was laying on the floor. And all of a sudden,
Chicago Police are forward! Chicago Police are forward!
they barged in with guns.
Get on the f***ing ground!
I was so scared I couldn't speak. The cops threatened my dad that they would shoot him, and one of the cops put his knee in my dad's back.
Your hands behind your back, buddy.
My dad comes in handcuffs, and me and my brother were screaming, "Don't shoot my dad, don't take my dad." They searched the bathroom, and they flipped the mattress. When my mom grabbed the search warrant, she looked at the names. That's when she said to the cops in the living room, "You have the wrong floor, this is not us."
They live upstairs. They live upstairs.
I was thinking, why is this happening to us? We were just a happy family. We did not want this.
Peter, time to get up, bud. Go wash your dress. I got your food ready to go.
My name is Peter Mendez. I'm 11 years old and I live in Chicago. And I'm in the 6th grade. I used to live at 35th and Damon, and that's where the raid happened. My mom and dad are really the greatest parents ever.
On the floor, don't eat on the couch, because I don't want your mom getting mad.
They're the best parents a kid could ever wish for. hard. My dad works hard. He works as a janitor. My mom, she's a computer person.
You want chocolate milk? No?
My little brother Jack means the most to me because he looks up to me. He's my baby brother.
Wash your hands, start getting dressed, baby.
When I was growing up, I wanted to be a cop. But now that that happened, I kind of don't want to be a cop if that's going to happen to other kids.
You're 7 years old.
Yes.
So this was your brother's birthday party.
Yes.
And how old was he turning?
4.
Were you excited for your brother?
Yes.
Why were you excited?
Because at the same time, I love cake. And every time it's on my birthday, I get really, I get really excited.
I came to cut cake, celebrate, sing happy birthday, show him I love him and bring him a present.
So he never got to cut his cake?
No.
No one got to have that cake?
No.
And so when the police officer came through this door, what was the police officer doing? Pointing the gun?
So I thought they was gonna shoot me and my brother and everybody else. He little. And you should never even see this.
What do you see?
A lot of police and so many of them. Like about, oh my God, so many of them. They just steady coming. A lot of them. At that time, I'm looking, thinking it's a joke, you know what I mean? But then you see guns. You see like, you see guns pointed at us. It was like terrifying. They didn't describe themselves as the police. They did not say who they were. They were like in regular clothes. The whole front room, they tore, tossed the couches or, threw the food on the floor, tossed his birthday gifts, just damaged like anything they got their hands on, they just flipped. After they left, the cake was on the floor in the corner with the number 4 stuck down in it.
I'm okay.
You're hearing this?
Yeah, it's just like emotional for my daughter to fully understand and feel the way she feels at just 7 years old. So yeah, it's always emotional for me, so I'm sorry.
She's comforting you right now.
Right.
Should she have had to have gone through something like that?
No. And that's our first time ever experiencing things like that. And I'm so surprised and proud of her that she's taking it well better than me. And I'm 33, and it's like, yeah.
It's hard for you.
Yeah.
Knowing your children were put in that position.
Yeah. On my son's birthday at that. So, yeah. Thank you, Mama.
If the police pointed guns at you during that raid, raise your hand.
They had us all run to like a corner of the room. It was in the kitchen though.
What were you thinking at that point?
I was scared.
Did you know what was happening?
No.
Why do you think the police would point a gun at you?
At first, I didn't know.
The informant told them that he'd been buying heroin out of the second floor apartment for 2 months from a guy named Ace, Derek Bell.
And then nobody stayed there but me and my boys. That's why I kept telling them, like, don't nobody stay here but me. So I'm like, who are you looking for? They never told me. I knew they had the wrong apartment when they looked at each other crazy.
This is the person police were looking for. But no one's ever even seen this guy.
Nope.
I got more records involved with the raid. Took a while, but we got him. The guy that they raided your house looking for, if they would have done their homework, the guy they were looking for was in prison. And he had been in prison since 2009. Rolling. For nearly the last year, we've been investigating wrong raids or raids involving search warrants that had inaccuracies.
We want to make sure that we're achieving law enforcement objectives in ways that assure the safety of the officers, but also in ways that minimize the impact and the footprint of government on the lives of individuals, especially when we're talking about children, and certainly in the context of when we're talking about invading people's homes, the very essence of what the Fourth Amendment is about.
When your mom told them you're in the
this
wrong
is-
apartment, what did they say?
Curtis Roberts, they live upstairs. They live upstairs.
He gave us the wrong apartment. He gave us the wrong apartment. He gave us the wrong apartment. He said up the stairs and it's the first door I took.
If they already know it's the wrong apartment,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. Anything back there?
why do they need to search? They kept searching, trying to find something on us.
Well, this don't think it'll be the first time, it's not the last time. They're gonna keep doing it.
Anybody can tell you anything off the street. Do you believe everything, a person tells you?
My name is Officer Brian Collins, C-O-L-L-I-N-S.
Star number?
16773.
Rank?
Police officer.
You were really cooperative.
Because I didn't want to get shot. That's the only thing I was worried about.
You could see how close that gun was to your face.
Yeah.
I could see it in the video.
So I get to walk towards the door. I walked to the door, it just bursted open. And they just came down the hallway with a shield and a gun. But I knew you got the wrong house. I knew.
Give me a hand, brother. All right? Your leg. Give me a hand. What's your name, young lady?
My name is Sean Green.
Okay.
This was that officer's first warrant. The one that got the warrant for your house, that's the first warrant he ever
You
got.
just probably put them out there.
This is the audio recorded statement of accused member Police Officer Brian Collins, star 16773. Prior to the execution of your warrant that day, how many apartments did you believe were on the first floor?
1.
Did you do a simple internet search of Google or any other internet search engines to confirm the number of units in that building?
No.
Did you personally conduct any surveillance of this location to ascertain if the alleged transactions were occurring at the rear door and to verify that you had the correct target unit?
When I drove by the front and rear of the...
But any surveillance after the drive-by?
No.
It was hard, seeing guns right there just pointed in the face. That's how we lost our mother to gun violence. So it was terrifying.
So you still have that emotional scar
Yes,
from losing your mom.
yes.
When you do lose a family member like that to gun violence, I'm sorry. I know it's hard. I'm sorry, Nishan.
I'm State Senator Jacqueline Collins. I represent the 16th Legislative District.
Clear.
I think that probably because they know that they're in a certain community where they feel they can get away with that kind of behavior. And I think because there's no discipline, there's no follow-up, there should be something in place, a departmental discipline for these violations where civil rights are violated. I think that is totally unacceptable, it's unconscionable, and that's why we need to get involved in mandating that they're held accountable for that misuse of power, abuse of power.
Superintendent, just switch gears for a second. Can you talk with us about wrong raids and bad search warrants?
Sure. You know, listen, we do thousands of search warrants a year, and we do everything we can to ensure that we are targeting the right location. But at the end of the day, you know, we rely on citizens' information most of the time. But we're not perfect. We're human. Sometimes we make mistakes, but we try to provide the officers all the training we can to ensure that that type of thing doesn't happen.
Are you tracking them? Do you know how many times they get it wrong?
Yeah, we look at it.
Do you have actual numbers?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we do have that.
Because we've been asking for numbers.
You hit the apartment of the Mendezes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I know that it's them upstairs. Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Mendez and their children, Peter and Jack, were not the intended targets of your search warrant, correct?
No, they were not.
Okay. Can you point to any training in your training record, any specific training course in your training record where they taught you that you should find out when kids are likely to not be home and execute the warrant during those times?
No.
Do you think the police were way too rough with you?
Yes. I even tried to shake their hands. Two of them just shrugged by. And then one just shook my hand. Because that was the guy that realized that they were in the wrong apartment.
We're in the middle of moving.
How did it make you feel when the officers wouldn't even shake your hand?
I just felt that they're unpolite because, you know, I was trying to be nice.
It's okay. It's okay, Peter. You're doing a good job. What are you thinking about right now?
Just the saddest moment.
They really hurt you that day. What did they make you feel?
It made me feel like the police weren't even what I thought they were.
You had a different image of what a police officer was. You wanted to be a police officer?
I just don't want you anymore. I don't think they're heroes.
Mayor, what's being done to protect kids, especially innocent families, from these repeated wrong raids?
We can't have this. What it does when we make mistakes, and particularly when we make mistakes in the way in which we deal with our children, that leaves an indelible scar that is very, very difficult to repair those kinds of relationships.
In the larger context of the very, very sort of challenged relationship between the police department and the public generally, and the issues of trust or lack of trust, every one of these incidents is an aggravator and a perpetuator of this mistrust that exists.
We the targets, black people.
Even though we're black, doesn't mean they gotta do this to us. It's like people think all Mexican and blacks are bad, but they're thinking wrong.
They feel that the police come in with no sensibilities, with implicit bias in how they relate to them, dehumanizing, disrespectful, and I believe unlawful.
How old are you, Daviana?
6.
Do you know what it means to tell the truth?
Yes. It means that you telling the people what happened.
So do you promise that you'll tell the truth?
Yes.
Very good.
I am the videographer on May 15th, 2017 for the recording of the deposition of Daviana Simmons being taken at 219 South Dearborn Street.
Do you know what a gun is?
Yes.
Do
Do you know what it's used for?
It's used to shoot.
To shoot who or what?
To shoot at people.
Did the police point a gun at anybody else in your house that day?
They pointed a gun at me.
They pointed a gun at you? Yes?
Yes.
Can you tell me what you remember about that?
That they put a gun in my chest.
Can you tell me what the prayer is that you say before you go to bed?
I pray that the police don't come back. I pray that everything is safe in my house. I pray that everything is safe, and I pray that I have good dreams in Jesus' name. Amen.
Because these officers are not trained on how to interact with young children, there's going to be a lot more trauma. Other major departments, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Charlottesville, San Francisco, Baltimore, they have trained their officers on how the youth brain works, how youth brains develop, and how officers should go out of their way not to expose young people, young children, to trauma.
It should be part of the pre-raid plan to discuss exactly what you're going to do if you encounter children.
I think we need to take those precautions to protect the things that happen to Peter does not happen to other children.
Was there a personal consequence or an outcome that you learned about after this day?
There was no personal, I wasn't punished in any way. I wasn't, no reprimand or anything like that.
Did anybody talk to you about the investigation that you did?
No.
Do you know that, like, when you met me, it was exactly 1 year ago today.
Really?
I looked at my calendar. I interviewed you on August 8th, 2018.
Really?
Yeah.
I know that.
The Inspector General has launched an investigation, and a law is being signed after your name to protect children in raid situations. So, are you understanding how important all this is?
Yeah, very important.
One year ago today.
I can't believe it. I still have to smile just because it's just a really big thing.
Well, what are you going to tell your friends?
I don't really know. I'm just going to say, not going to brag about it or anything. I'm just going to say, hey, look, the governor signed the bill so that way every single kid or every single person that has been raided, wrong raids, has been protected. Just because there's a law doesn't mean they're going to follow it sometimes. Because you got some people that care and you got some people that don't care. I was scared to use the bathroom by myself. I was scared to walk home by myself. I was scared to turn the lights off and go through the back door. That's how I got to therapy. I didn't like therapy at first, but I can now walk home by myself. I can use the bathroom and turn off the lights. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a cop. But now that happened, I want to be a doctor. I am Peter Mendez. I am brave, I am smart, I am capable. Sometimes it gets sad, but I know how to work through it.
Jim Williams here with Dave Savini. That was difficult viewing. You've been working on these stories for a year, and you've uncovered cases involving many other children who were not in this documentary.
Yeah, these were just a few of the children and a few of the families. So far, we've examined cases ourselves of 23 different children that have gone through similar traumas. Guns pointed at them, their parents handcuffed in front of them, and sometimes the children as young as 8 put in handcuffs.
I think we can all acknowledge that Chicago police officers have a very difficult job fighting crime in a violent city. They're going to have to do raids in some cases. How many raids do they do a year?
They tell us they do several thousand raids a year, 2,000 to 3,000, maybe 3,500 raids in any one year.
Do we have any idea how many of those raids are unwarranted?
That's why we're doing the investigation. They refuse to turn over the records of all of the wrong raids.
What do they tell you?
The superintendent won't sit down like we're sitting down right here and answer questions from us.
Although he did answer your questions in that news conference.
If you want to go to a news conference and maybe get 1 or 2 questions out, he might answer you. I asked him right there at the podium. We've been asking for these records at that point, we had been asking for months. Now, we've been asking for over a year.
And you've been enlisting the Illinois Attorney General's office.
We had to go to the Illinois Attorney General's office to get them to force the Chicago Police Department to release a sliver of information. And in that sliver of information that we got, it doesn't make any sense. Our raids that we've been focusing on are missing. They're not in the documents. So where are the records? If we know those raids exist, why aren't those records in the records they're giving us?
Dave, these police officers are required to wear body cameras, and we saw some of that footage. How important?
Extremely important. People on the street have been saying this type of behavior has been happening for decades and longer. And they had no way to really fight back. It was a police officer's word versus their word. And what the body camera does is it brings the element of proof into the entire raid. You know, you have a recording of what's actually happening. Had there not been body cameras, we wouldn't have heard those officers whispering in the kitchen saying, we're in the wrong apartment. This is the wrong effing apartment. And then we wouldn't have seen that they continued to search an innocent family's apartment regardless.
And when a child like Peter has to have therapy because of the trauma, who pays for that?
Ultimately, in the end, Jim, we all end up paying for it because in the Daviana Simmons case, it settled for $2.5 million.
That was the little girl.
That was the little girl that testified, that had the little prayer that she says before she goes to bed.
So we have the police training, which doesn't exist,
right.
But there is a directive, a manual of sorts to explain how a raid should be conducted, correct?
There is a directive, it's a manual, and it tells them what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to independently verify the information that the confidential informant or the John Doe or the Jane Doe gave them.
There's a great cost to taxpayers because the city has had to pay the victims. But there's also broken trust, which hinders officers from fighting crime.
Well, when any of these children go through a situation like this, their image of a police officer changes, their trust changes, and it will affect them throughout their life. They could become nervous. They may not want to call police when they need help because they've had a negative experience. But one of the things that families tell us is really one of the hardest parts of it is the humiliation they go through. You know, look at Peter. Peter had this entire raid happen in his house, but what does he remember other than the guns being pointed and his father in handcuffs? He remembers they didn't even shake his hand when they walked out. One guy did, but the other guys didn't.
What's next?
So since we started this documentary, we got contacted by another family, another wrong raid. We're working on that case, and we're going to keep asking and fighting to get those records from the city on how often the wrong raids happen.
Of course, we'll be interested to see what happens. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Jim.